Scotland has outperformed the rest of the UK during the past 10 years in drawing tourists to its popular attractions. Few places embody the middle of nowhere quite as poetically as Scotland, with its beautiful highlands, clear lochs and windy islands, where the only sound is the breeze rushing through stone crags. There is so much to discover here, so let's start this journey. Glasgow is Scotland's biggest and most temperamental city. It has traditionally been overshadowed by Edinburgh in terms of tourism. This is partially due to Glasgow's reputation, which is rooted in its clichés, just like the fierce rivalry between Celtic and Rangers, two of its football teams. The city benefited greatly from the Industrial Revolution and became a real treasure trove of Victorian architecture. It was heavily devastated during World War II and constantly marginalised compared to Edinburgh. To be honest, Glasgow is nowhere near as pretty as its rival, but it has its own working-class charm. George Square awaits everyone arriving at Queen Street Station. The square is the most popular place for protest and celebration and helps in directing tourists around the city centre. A shortage of options for accommodation in Glasgow is arguably the clearest indication of the city's lack of tourists. The majority of visitors don't even stay here. The trip to Loch Lomond is only a short drive away, and Central Station serves as your entry point to the West Highlands. The street art of Glasgow is surely among its top tourist attractions. The urban artworks that have brought life to the city centre's walls and corners may be seen by following the city centre mural trail. Dinosaur skeletons and Salvador Dali's artworks are among the astounding 8,000 items displayed at the Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum. One outstanding example of Gothic architecture is the Glasgow Cathedral. It is the only cathedral that has withstood the Reformation of 1560 on the mainland of Scotland. Glasgow is crossed by the second longest river in Scotland, the River Clyde. It was crucial to the economic development of the city since it made it possible for ships to deliver goods to marketplaces all over the world. Glasgow is the best shopping city in the UK after London. In the heart of the city, there are many prominent shopping centres and flagship stores. Since it became Scotland's capital in the 15th century, Edinburgh has had a special place in the hearts of Scottish people. King David I founded Edinburgh in the 12th century and made it one of the country's first royal burghs. Today, both the new town and the old town are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. There are a ton of things to see and do in this city, which is the second most visited in the UK. Standing on Castle Rock, an extinct 400 million years old volcano, is the iconic Edinburgh Castle. Built during the 12th century, it proudly looks out over the old town of the city. In fact, this is the most famous building in all of Scotland, and you could easily spend several hours here discovering the history of the castle. The Crown Jewel exhibit, in particular, is well worth its price. There are so many historical buildings and monuments in the area. On the outskirts of Edinburgh stands an old, extinct volcano known as Arthur's Seat. At a height of 250 metres, it offers hikers an amazing view of the city. There are restaurants and shops lining the pedestrian-only Royal Mile. It has a very historic vibe, despite being crowded all year long. The National Museum Scotland is a great place to learn more about Scotland. You'll go on an expedition of discovery, exploring Scotland's past, as well as the wonders of science, technology and nature through the exhibitions here. With its wide parklands, royal estates and the Botanic Garden, Edinburgh is also the greenest city in Scotland. There are several large-scale festivals held in the city during the summer, with the Edinburgh Fringe Festival being the most popular. This arts festival, which takes place in August, presents all kinds of artists and performers. Edinburgh is a rather small city that is just perfect for sightseeing on foot. Walking from the city centre to some of the sites on the periphery takes as little as 30 minutes. In the heart of Scotland, where the Highlands and Lowlands meet, you'll find the city of Stirling. It was founded as a royal burgh in 1124. For anyone with even a slight interest in Scottish history and heritage, Stirling provides a fascinating trip down memory lane. Under the leadership of William Wallace and Andrew Moray, the Scots triumphed over the English army at the famous Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. Of course, the Stirling Castle is the biggest attraction of Stirling, visible from miles around the city. The castle has been expanded, modified and improved by several Scottish monarchs throughout the years and served as their royal residence. Mary, Queen of Scots, was crowned here in 1543. Long into the 18th century, Stirling Castle was a military stronghold and was also involved in the Jacobite risings. The Church of the Holy Rood is another pearl in the city's crown, sitting close to the castle. Built in the 12th century, it's one of the oldest buildings in the region. The National Wallace Monument honours the life of Sir William Wallace, the famous Scottish patriot. The monument stands on Abbey Craig, a little distance outside of Stirling, and provides a view of the site of Wallace's greatest victory, the Battle of Stirling Bridge. The stories of the battle and the legacy Wallace left behind are presented in the monument's exhibition galleries. You can see his legendary battle sword and enjoy the views from the tower. The Galloway Forest Park surely has to be at the top of your list if you're looking for some of Scotland's most amazing landscapes. It's located 85 kilometres south of Glasgow. The park, which opened in 1947, is also called the Highlands of the Lowlands. Around 1 million people visit it annually. Countless hiking paths and the famous Grey Man of the Merrick may be found in the park. Bruce's Stone stands on a gorgeous vantage point with a view of Loch Trool's shimmering waters. It honours Scotland's King Robert the Bruce and the Battle of Trool in 1307. Here in the park you can have a picnic beside an idyllic loch, drive through spectacular landscapes and encounter red deer and wild goats. Not only is this Scotland's first dark sky park, but it's also among Europe's greatest spots for stargazing. The Seven Stains mountain biking routes are great for both beginner and expert riders. Every year, more than 500,000 tonnes of timber are collected, making the trees an important source of income. Halfway between Edinburgh and Glasgow, on Scotland's central belt, sits the town of Falkirk. It was formerly an important outpost along the Antonine Wall, which stretched from the River Clyde to the Firth of Forth and was the Roman Empire's northernmost frontier. Two major battles took place at Falkirk as part of the Wars of Scottish Independence: the Battle of Falkirk in 1298 and the Battle of Falkirk Muir in 1746. The Falkirk region is known for its unusual accent, which combines Scots, English and Scottish Gaelic. The Helix Park has 30 metres tall horse-head sculptures called the Kelpies. Needless to say, it's the world's biggest sculpture of a horse. The fabled shape-shifting ghosts who live in Scotland's lochs and pools were the inspiration behind this landmark. Usually appearing as a horse, they may be controlled by anybody who manages to seize hold of their bridle. There is just one rotating boat lift in the world, and that is the Falkirk Wheel. For the first time since the 1930s, Glasgow and Edinburgh were reconnected in 2002 by a canal system. Back in the day, you needed a whole day to pass, but the Falkirk Wheel elevates a boat in a matter of minutes. You may discover the town's historic landmarks and natural beauty by walking the Union Canal towpath and the John Muir Way. Regular buses and trains departing from Glasgow and Edinburgh will get you to Falkirk in less than an hour. Since the attractions are quite far apart, driving to the town is perhaps the better option. Loch Lomond is a freshwater loch and part of the Trossachs and Loch Lomond National Park. The national park is really worth visiting further since it has some of the most breathtaking landscapes and occupies around 1,800 square kilometres. Set in southern Scotland, it takes around an hour to get there by car from Glasgow. Its basin was formed around 10,000 years ago, near the end of the last ice age, when glaciers carved it out. there are 27 islets and 22 islands in its waters. Because of the size of the national park, almost half of all people in Scotland live within an hour's drive from it. Loch Lomond is the third deepest loch in Scotland, reaching a maximum depth of 190 metres. Water skiing, kayaking, swimming and sailing are all quite popular, and hikers will love the West Highland Way or the Three Lochs Way. Additionally, you might be able to see some of Scotland's rarest animals, such as red squirrels, pine martens and deer. Serving as a junction for travellers heading to the Inner and Outer Hebrides, the town of Oban is best known as the gateway to the Isles. With a view of Lismore, Carrera and the Isle of Mull, it sits on the Firth of Lorn. Just over 8,500 people live in the town of Oban, but during the summer months up to 30,000 people can be accommodated here. The lively harbour draws both tourists and commercial fishermen to the area. Being the seafood capital of Scotland, the town is worthy of its title since it has some of the freshest seafood and several restaurants that have won awards. The most notable landmark of Oban is McCaig's Tower. The tower was constructed in 1897 as a permanent memorial to the McCaig family and as a source of income for local stonemasons by the local banker John Stuart McCaig. The breathtaking views of Oban Bay make the climb to the tower from the town centre well worth the effort. The town is home to galleries, a museum, and even a ruined castle that is reachable by walking along the waterfront. The Isle of Mull is the second biggest island of the Inner Hebrides. It has gained a lot of popularity as a holiday spot, especially among wildlife lovers. The island is perhaps best known for the colourful harbour of Tobermory, its capital, which is located at the northern end. Among the most popular attractions on Mull are the brightly painted houses that line the harbour of this charming town. Tobermory is also the island's largest community by far, and popular among visitors of all sorts. Despite not having many high peaks, northern Mull is nevertheless wild, with some nice paths to satisfy the hikers. Numerous paths in the woodland and along the ocean may be found in the area around Tobermory, while the coastline gets wilder towards the west. Not only is Calgary Bay known for its excellent beach, but the entire region offers stunning views of the coast. Located on the Sound of Mull shore, the medieval ruins of Aros Castle are visible from the village of Sellen. With accommodation, a post office, restaurants and other services, Sellen is Mull's centre for travelling to all other parts of the island. The 13th century Duart Castle, standing on a rock overlooking the Sound of Mull, is one of the island's most noteworthy historical attractions. Red deer are found all around the island, however many of them move up to the higher moorland in the summer to eat on the nutrient-rich highland plants. Fort William is a beautiful town in the Highlands. In and around the town there are around 10,000 people who work and reside. Originally established in the 17th century as a garrison settlement, it rose to prominence in the 18th century with the building of Fort William, a military fortification during the Jacobite uprisings. By visiting the old Inverloch Castle, a 13th century ruin that saw two battles in the 17th century, you'll get a peek into Fort William's medieval past. You should also visit the West Highland Museum to discover more about Fort William's culture and history. It has displays on the Highland clans and the Jacobite rebellion. Connecting Fort William and Inverness, the 60-mile Caledonian Canal goes past some of Scotland's most picturesque lochs. You may rent a kayak or take a boat to cruise down the canal. The Jacobite steam train travels the West Highland Line from Fort William to Mallaig and is a must-see for fans of Harry Potter. Tired of horizontal walks? Then you should visit Ben Nevis, the highest mountain in Scotland and the entire United Kingdom. Ben Nevis is located close to Fort William in the Highland district of Lochaber at the western foot of the Grampian Mountains. The summit reaches an impressive height of 1,345 metres above sea level. Every year, over 100,000 climbs are accomplished. The majority of climbers use the popular mountain track, which begins in Glen Nevis. There are some really amazing 700-metre cliffs on the north face. Here, vertical cardio is everything. The air gets thinner as you go up, but at least the gorgeous views are inversely proportionate to your oxygen levels. The summit ground is surprisingly very huge, and sometimes you'll find hundreds of people resting there. Standing on top of a former volcano, the peak was originally home to an observatory from 1883 until 1904. The meteorological information gathered during this time is still essential for evaluating the weather in Scottish mountains. Hiking to the top of Ben Nevis is best done in the summer months if you are an amateur hiker. There is a possibility of snow at the summit throughout the year. However, during the winter, the peak is covered with a heavy layer of snow and ice, which covers the routes and makes the ascent quite dangerous. Originally the seat of the MacDonald clan, Castle Tioram was built in the 14th century. Highland clans were landowners that distinguished themselves from other clans by wearing a tartan and clan crest that was unique to them. This is an important location where the River Shiel and Loch Moidart meet, and archaeological evidence points to the presence of Vikings in the past. Since it controlled the major trade routes from Skye and the South Hebridean Islands, this fortress was essential to the area. It lies around 80 kilometres west of Fort William. At high tide, the sandbar that connects it to the mainland turns it into an island. The castle is now a ruin, and because of the risk of falling stones, the inside is closed to the general public. Its interior is much larger than it appears to be from the outside. The castle has a pentagonal curtain wall and was built directly onto the top of the rock at the highest part of the island. Despite being a small village, Glenfinnan has gained worldwide attention for a number of reasons. First of all, here in Glenfinnan, the tale of Bonnie Prince Charlie's fight for the British throne gained momentum. This location, as well as the clansmen who battled for the cause, are honoured by the Glenfinnan Monument. Alexander MacDonald of Glenaladale constructed it in 1815. The entire tale is told at the Visitor Centre, which is open April through October. The Glenfinnan Gathering is held annually in August next to the monument. The next landmark that you will undoubtedly recognise is the famous Glenfinnan Viaduct, which connects the railway with the Glenfinnan station. It was designed by the prominent rail and road engineer Robert McAlpine, better known as Concrete Bob. The viaduct is 30 metres above ground and 400 metres long. The Jacobite steam train travels from here to Fort William and Mallaig in the summer, and regular trains are available all year round. This place is also famous for appearing in 2 Harry Potter films. Named for the River Coe that flows through it, Glencoe is arguably the most famous valley in Scotland. It lies in the Highlands and was formed by volcanic activity. The glen's idyllic beauty has led to its inclusion in the Glencoe and Ben Nevis National Scenic Area. The Glencoe ski area, maybe better known as White Corries, is located on the eastern side of the glen. With the construction of the first overhead ski lift in 1956, Glencoe became the first commercial Scottish ski area. The Glencoe Mountain Resort has the longest and steepest runs in Scotland, which are perfect for skiers and snowboarders. Set on the western edge of the valley, the village of Glencoe offers some accommodation choices. The glen has 3 approved campsites, and there are also several spots where wild camping is permitted. It's often said that the trip to Glencoe is just as enjoyable as the destination. There are many spots to stop and stretch your legs on the scenic journey from Glasgow. Originally founded during the 1800s herring boom, Mallaig is a tiny working fishing port that later benefited from the construction of the West Highland Railway. The local marina is the perfect starting point for seeing some of Scotland's most breathtaking and secluded landscapes. It's a paradise for sailors wishing to explore the breathtaking northwest coast of the country. The port is busy these days, not much of an attraction, but pleasant enough. The Mallaig Heritage Centre offers information about the region's long and interesting past for anyone who's interested in history. The Knoydart Peninsula, sometimes described as Scotland's last wilderness, is located just north of Mallaig. Throughout the summer, there are morning, afternoon and full-day boat trips from Mallaig Pier to Knoydart and the Isles, if you're interested in a guided boat trip. The largest and perhaps the most famous of Scotland's Inner Hebrides is the Isle of Skye. This island, which is the second biggest in Scotland, is a huge patchwork of velvet moors, craggy mountains, dazzling lochs and towering sea cliffs. Furthermore, Skye ranks as Scotland's third most popular tourist destination overall. The people of Skye are spread out among the island's several villages and towns. Skye's population fell sharply from over 20,000 to about 9,000 during the 19th century clearances. The Old Man of Storr, a massive rock standing on a hill, is the most famous sight on Skye. You can hike to the top and it will take you around 40 minutes to reach this wonderful place. Once there, the panorama is breathtaking. You will get a view of the surrounding islands and the sea. In the far north of the Isle of Skye sits the stunning hill formation known as Crail. Despite being somewhat high up, it is accessible by road. Neast Point, the westernmost point of the Isle of Skye, is a breathtaking viewpoint with a lighthouse set on it. If you're daring enough to leap off a rock into a freezing pool of crystal clear water, you may go wild swimming in the fairy pools, which are little waterfalls in the southwestern part of the island. The biggest town on Skye, Portree, is a centre of culture and cuisine. Although Portree doesn't have a lot of restaurants, the ones that do exist provide the greatest seafood in all of Scotland. Most likely the oldest castle in Scotland's north to still be inhabited is Duncansby Castle. It has been continually occupied for about 750 years by the chiefs of the Clan MacLeod. The Skye Bridge, first opened to traffic in 1995, links the island to the mainland of Scotland. There are actually two ways to reach Skye, via ferry or by car. As such, Broadford or Armadale will be your point of entry. There aren't many good bus connections on the island, so they won't be able to take you to anything that's worth seeing. Therefore, renting a vehicle or a bike are the two choices we would recommend. The archipelago of St Kilda is an outpost in the North Atlantic Ocean and perhaps the most isolated place in Scotland. It lies 65 kilometres off the west coast of Benbecula. Discoverers and travellers coming to St Kilda in the late 19th and early 20th centuries were captivated by the isolation and the simple lifestyle of its people. But as the islanders' interaction with the outside world increased, they faced additional difficulties like illness and societal shifts. Due to migration and poor economic conditions, St Kilda's population started to decrease in the late 19th century. The situation was made worse by the start of World War I. The last residents left the archipelago in 1930. Although St Kilda is now abandoned, its historic buildings and village ruins remain as a reminder of this once thriving place. Tourists are free to explore the main island of Hirta. The St Kilda Museum, School and Church offer a fascinating look at the St Kildans' way of life before their evacuation. Today, the archipelago is a wildlife reserve under protection. As one of the main seabird breeding grounds in the North Atlantic, St Kilda is the most important seabird colony in Europe. Thanks to its unique natural scenery and fascinating history, St Kilda is the only double UNESCO World Heritage Site in Scotland. On Scotland's western coast, after you cross the Pass of the Cattle, and before you drive 19 kilometres across the A87 bridge to the Isle of Skye, you'll come across Plockton. With a population of only 400 people, Plockton is regarded by many as Scotland's most lovely village. The charming place has incredible views of Loch Carron and sits on a sheltered bay. Plockton has featured in a lot of movies and TV shows, thanks to its scenic location and authentic Highland vibe. Once a thriving fishing and crofting community, the bay is now a popular summertime setting for visiting yachts and is famous for its sailing regatta. The Plockton Regatta starts at the end of July and lasts for 2 weeks. Plockton has a studio and art gallery, and the village hall hosts regular exhibitions. There are also several hotels and guest homes in Plockton for tourists who want to stay for a while. One of the most scenic peninsulas of the Highlands is the Applecross Peninsula in Wester Ross. If you wish to base yourself to explore Scotland's west coast, Applecross is an excellent place for that. Gairloch, Torridon and the Isle of Skye are all easily accessible from there. The First World War caused a dramatic drop in the population of Applecross. Currently, 500 people live here permanently. While fishing and crofting remain important, tourism currently dominates the economy. Applecross is a very isolated place, and there are only 2 ways of getting here. The narrow scenic coast road from Shieldaig and the famous Bealach Nubba, the highest road in Britain. The region around Applecross is said to be among the first areas of Scotland to be settled. You may find a major archaeological site at the seaside community of Sand, which is located just north of Applecross. The area is full of natural beauty and wildlife. It is home to several native Scottish animals such as foxes, wildcats, otter and red deer. Loch Ness is amazing in every way. This mysterious and stunning lake is found in the Scottish Highlands. Is there a monster waiting in the deep? It is around 36 kilometres long and runs through the Great Glen. It was formed by volcanic activity. Its dark waters have a maximum depth of 230 metres, giving its fabled monster plenty of hiding spots. It is said that Loch Ness holds more water than all the lakes in England and Wales put together. The popular Loch Ness exhibition has further information regarding the search for Nessie. If you get bored looking for Nessie, there are plenty of other things to do in this gorgeous part of the Scottish Highlands. You can visit some golf courses, open-air Shakespearean performances, and of course, the historic Urquhart Castle. The English soldiers blew up this famous castle in 1692 to prevent the Jacobites from gaining control over it. The water here is beautiful, and you can rent a sailboat to explore the remote shores of the most famous loch in Scotland. Scots describe Inverness as the Highland capital. With only 55,000 residents, it's one of Scotland's smaller cities, located in the north of the country. Thanks to its airport, Inverness is one of Scotland's fastest growing cities, and the perfect starting point for touring the north of the nation. The Caledonian Canal's completion in 1822 improved the city's connectivity, facilitating trade and navigation between the east and west coasts of Scotland. The most famous landmark here is the Inverness Castle. The castle viewpoint is the only part of the building that is now open to visitors. On a clear day, the amazing 360-degree view from the top makes the entry charge well worth it. The Inverness Cathedral is a prominent building along the river, and it is free to visit. It opened in 1869, therefore it is not as old as many other cathedrals in Scotland. The Ness Islands are a group of islands in the River Ness that are connected by a number of charming footbridges from the Victorian era. This is simply the best nature walk close to the city centre. If you don't want to walk the entire 5 kilometres, you can always take a shortcut. The Highland Games, an annual celebration of Scottish sports and tradition, is one of the many festivals and events held in Inverness. The North Coast 500 is an 830-kilometre scenic route along Scotland's northern coast that starts and ends in Inverness. The NC 500 was established in 2014 and consists of a loop of pre-existing highways and roads that circles the Northern Highlands, rather than being a single long route. Nothing compares to the freedom of a wide open road, endless winding roads and lovely bends across some of Scotland's most breathtaking coastline landscapes. The route goes around the western coast, arriving in Applecross before heading north to the towns of Torridon and Allapool. After that, you'll go to some of Scotland's most northern coastline places, passing by Caithness and John O'Groats before returning to Inverness. The NC 500 also passes through the heart of the Highlands, an area dotted with historic castles and gorgeous lochs. Despite providing a really special experience, the NC 500 is not without challenges. Inexperienced drivers may find the narrow, twisting roads intimidating, particularly when going through the single-track parts that are usual in rural regions. Furthermore, you'll need to pull over for large camper vans to pass. Did you know that at 4,500 square kilometres, the Cairngorms National Park is the biggest national park in the United Kingdom? The central feature of the park, the Cairngorms mountain range in the Scottish Highlands, is the inspiration behind the park's name. There are more mountains, woodland trails, rivers, lochs, wildlife hotspots and welcoming villages here than you could ever dream. 5 of the 6 tallest mountains in the United Kingdom are located within the park. There are several historic sites scattered around the area, such as Iron Age hill forts, standing stones and burial cairns. Cairngorm Mountain and the Let, 2 ski resorts, are very popular during the winter. Loch Mallaig is a freshwater loch surrounded by pine trees and sandy beaches. The park is home to 25,000 red deer, one of the greatest herds in Scotland. The park's highlands are also home to the only free-ranging herd of reindeer in Britain, the Cairngorms reindeer herd, which draws many tourists. The park is crossed by the River Dee, an important salmon river in Scotland that serves as a vital Atlantic salmon breeding area. The park is accessible from both the north and the south via major roads like the A9. The Cairngorms region has a number of train stations that link the park to larger cities like Edinburgh, Glasgow and Inverness. Duncansby Head is located at the northernmost point of the British mainland. 3 sea stacks that together make up the famous Duncansby Stacks were developed over hundreds of thousands of years. The sea stacks are shaped like pyramids, with a hole in the midst of the first stack. For hikers, Duncansby Head is a hiking paradise. Many scenic paths run around the coastline, beginning with the lighthouse at Duncansby Head, which is positioned above the cliffs. The best way to travel to Duncansby Head is by car. To get to the sea stacks, park near to the Duncansby Head lighthouse and take a walk. The walk from the parking lot to the main viewpoint should take around 15 minutes. It takes around 3 hours to drive from the closest city, Inverness. The Shetland Islands are the northernmost point of Scotland, lying around 100 miles off its northeast coast. The majority of trips to Shetland begin with an overnight ferry. When you get to the mainland, you'll have plenty of time to explore the charming 17th century town of Lerwick, the northernmost town in the entire United Kingdom. Herring fishing first brought Lerwick some prosperity, followed by oil production. The ruins of Fort Charlotte, which served as the town's foundation, and the historic Lodbury's warehouses with its bases in the sea, are just 2 of the highlights here. From the time of their arrival in the 8th century until the archipelago was given to the Scots in 1468, the Vikings reigned over Shetland for more than 5 centuries. These days, their influence may be seen in everything from local festivals and language to cuisine and place names. It should come as no surprise that the Shetland Islands' primary industry is fishing. Every year, over 80,000 tons of fish are landed here, and most of the catch is also processed there. This is a popular place for hiking, and those who like to hike will especially enjoy climbing Ronas Hill, Shetland's highest point. There are around 100 islands in the archipelago, but only 20 of them are inhabited. Bird life, otters and seals can be found living in the remaining areas. A protected natural reserve covers the whole island of Noss. Big bird populations like fulmars, guillemots and puffins that live in the towering Knope cliffs are the best sights to be viewed on sea safaris. Shetland is a difficult place to get to. The best choice is the 12-hour overnight ferry from Aberdeen. There are also frequently direct flights from Scotland's major cities. Having a car will almost definitely be necessary once you get there. Be prepared for the thrilling task of navigating Shetland's system of single-track roads. These roads are an exciting test of your driving abilities and patience with their tricky turns, blind corners, and delightful lack of overtaking chances. On Scotland's northeastern coast lies the city of Aberdeen. It's the third most populated city in Scotland, home to over 240,000 people. Aberdeen is known for the centre beach and its granite monuments and buildings. Due to the predominance of this resistant stone in its construction, Aberdeen is also called the Granite City. On a bright day, it looks quite appealing. Aberdeen is not only dark and depressing, it's quite green too. There are 6 parks in the city where you may enjoy recreational activities. Old Aberdeen is where most of the attractions are. Most tourists visit the King's College, a university established in 1495. The cathedral and the Powis Gate towers are also interesting. Further along the coast are several undeveloped beaches that may be reached from the city centre beach, which is surrounded by restaurants, cafes, and even a fairground. Many of Scotland's historic castles are within a short distance from the city. Aberdeen has long been known as the oil capital of Europe, and the city's economy profited greatly from the discovery of North Sea oil in the 1960s. St Andrews is Scotland's world-famous home of golf. This historic town is known for its medieval streets, historic university, and stunning traditional architecture. It is situated on the east coast, a short 30 minutes from Dundee, and less than 2 hours from Edinburgh and Glasgow. St Andrews offers so many interesting things to see and do. You have to explore the remains of what was once Scotland's greatest cathedral, the St Andrews Cathedral, because it's a must-see for any traveller. Valuable artefacts and sculptures from the Middle Ages that were discovered on the site are kept in the cathedral's museum. The Old Course at St Andrews is one of the most famous golf courses in the world, and a place that every golfer dreams of visiting. Golf has been played at St Andrews for over 600 years, according to historical documents. With 10 courses available in and around the town, there are many options available depending on your budget. St Andrews Castle has served as a state jail, a fortress, and a bishop's residence during its 450-year existence. Cut out of solid rock, the Bottle Dungeon was one of the most notorious castle jails in medieval Britain. Scotland's oldest university, the University of St Andrews, was established in 1413. It provides a highly enthusiastic, superior educational experience in a safe and historic environment, and offers a flexible degree structure. If you're into spooky places, the St Andrews Ghost Tours will take you to several haunted locations in the area. Of the coastal communities on the south side of the East Neuk of Fife, Crail is the most easterly. It is also, according to many, the most beautiful of them. Crail is a mystical location with charming streets, adorable cafes, and of course Crail Harbour, which is perhaps the most beautiful harbour in the East Neuk. Strolling around the breathtaking streets of Crail is one of the nicest things to do. Along the high street are several small, independent shops that sell souvenirs and small gifts. Along the Nethergate there are many traditional cottages. Marketgate, formerly the biggest marketplace in Europe, lies in the medieval centre of Crail. The harbour is one of the most prominent places in the area. It's easily recognised by the red stone walls and white houses that round the water. One of the most stunning and iconic views is the cliff-top panorama above Crail harbour. Fishing boats still come into the harbour every day to unload their catch, which is primarily crabs and lobsters from nearby waters. What's your favourite region of Scotland? Let us know in the comments. If you loved this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more amazing travel guides.